Hey guys, welcome to the Fantasy and Friends Mailbag Show, where we answer your burning fantasy football questions. I'm here with the big boss, Jorge Edwards, and fresh off our European adventures, Stacy Perez. And we're looking forward to getting into some of these mailbag questions we've got for you.
We have production quality now. That's awesome. Love it.
Does that mean we've been upgraded to a full-time show on the Fantasy and Frames channel, right?
I think so. I think once you get music invested into your show and a nice little graphic there to go along with it, I think you've arrived. So congratulations, all.
Fantastic. I knew dragging the big boss into the show would be a good idea.
She's the big boss now. I'm just. It's like an Avengers where Tony Stark's like, oh, she's the boss. I just do other stuff, but she calls the shots, and
that's who I was talking about.
I guess you call the shots now, so there we go.
Stace, before we get started, how was your European voyage? Meet any fantasy football fans?
I did actually. And so I think I told you guys forever ago. I found this football bar in Rome, right in the middle of all the things. And I decided I was there Sunday night. So I made my girlfriends. We had done all of our excursions for the day. So I was like, we're going to watch football tonight. So we show up there and it's like halftime in the Kansas City Bengals game. And we go in and of course, like they're showing American football. So there's definitely like Americans there. So I met some people from Cincinnati. And then I met this Australian guy who was super into football, and he subscribed to our channel right while we were there. So Jorge, if we have any new subscribers from Australia, there you go. That's where that came from. So we just had a total blast. I went up to get a beer, and this girl in front of me turned around and said, "What part of America are you from?" And I was like, "Oh, is it that obvious?"
Yeah, you guys stick out like a sore thumb when you're over this way.
Oh yeah.
You're easy to spot. I always get excited when I hear the accent. I'm like, oh, I might find a football fan here, and then 9 times out of 10, they're not football fans. I'm like, how have I found the lamest American?
Oh yeah. And listen, and on the next Sunday, I was on the cruise, and I was just looking around, counting all the different like football stuff people had on hats and shirts. But I mean, it was pretty much like a bunch of Americans on this cruise anyway. But it was just fun to see, all the different like teams, out there, and just in a different place. But I feel like I haven't really been like up to date on everything. I've been trying to keep up. But I was like this morning, I was like, oh my God, have I like forgotten how to football? Like,
if you've forgotten how to football, we're all in trouble. I want to kick off with a quick Thursday night football question. I'm looking at some of my lineups, and I'm wondering, after his poor sort of performance last week, are you guys firing up Adam Thielen this week?
I am. I think last week was a fluke. Let me put it like this: I have more faith in Adam Thielen than DJ Moore, and I don't know what that means because so Gator J, who normally does our production behind the scenes, he came out. He did some research for some prop bets. But if you want to see what they are, head over to our TikTok as well as our Fantasy and Frames page here on Twitter. And he put out a short where basically, I guess I'll give a couple away. He was high on Thielen getting over 60 plus yards and under 55 yards for DJ Moore, because if you look back this season, DJ Moore has only had 1 or 2 games where he's surpassed 100 yards, and one of them it was against my Commanders, which sucks, where like 250 or something like that. Oh God, it was so ridiculous. I'm getting flashbacks here on Thursday. Anywho, yeah. So I don't know. I think Thielen is the guy there. I think he just had a bad matchup last week. And at the end of the day, who's the other receiving target in Carolina that Bryce, he can target? I don't know who that is aside from Thielen. Stacy, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I was just pulling up the numbers over here, and Thielen's got more than double the amount of targets that anybody else on that team has right now. I mean, the next person up is going to be Jonathan Mingo with 37. Thielen's leading the pack at 76. I didn't get to see the game last week, but I'm with you, Jorge. I don't know who else you're throwing to besides Adam Thielen.
Can you guys hear that noise? Can you hear that?
I heard is it as like a snoring or a growl or something at somebody's dog?
Oh my God, are you about to get in trouble?
Okay. Yes.
Oh,
we
so
got
cute.
the puppies. We got the puppies here, and one of them he's a French bulldog, but he's built like a hippo. That noise is coming from a cute French bulldog. So apologies.
We have a mascot now. That's awesome. Not only do we have new music, new graphics, but now we have a Mailbag Show mascot there.
We got little Vinny.
What's his name?
Vinny.
Vinny. That's amazing.
We've got right. So my name is Billy Mustafa, as we should all know here. When I was younger, I couldn't say Mustafa. Right. So when my auntie would ask me my name, I'd tell her my name was Billy Muffa. So she wanted to name the dog Vinny Woofer.
That's adorable.
Right. Billy Muffa, Vinny Woofer. There we go. You can tell I'm my auntie's favorite, right?
That's amazing. They're sleeping through Thursday Night Football. They're not like thrilled by the Panthers Bears matchup here.
No, I mean, if it was two good teams, I think Vinny might have tried to stay away, but it wasn't happening this week. Okay, Kyle Pitts. It's time I think we have that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
What are we doing with Kyle Pitts? I'm talking dynasty specifically. I can't trust him, and I don't know if it's his fault. I don't know if it's Arthur Smith's fault, but I'm an active seller at the moment, and I feel like I'm out on my own. I need someone to kind of tell me that I'm not doing some mad thing, and that I've actually there's some sense in being a seller. Boss, what are you thinking?
So you go back to weeks 5 and 6 and half PPR scoring, back-to-back 12-point games, 12.2, 12.3 specifically. Coincidentally, you saw 11 targets. You got 6 targets. It's like Desmond Ridder remembered that he was a quarterback and could throw the ball. And so it's like, oh, wow, I can do this. And Arthur Smith realized, hey, I have a quarterback whose job it is to throw the ball to these awesome receiving options. And Kyle Pitts was the beneficiary there. But then we go back to the Tampa Bay game. They made it mainly a run-heavy affair. Only 5 targets. 5 targets, 5 targets, 3 out of 5, 4 out of 5 receptions. It's just bad, man. It's bad. The question is, has his hype diminished at all to not warrant a high draft pick in a trade if you're trading draft picks for this player? Or do you think enough people have been like, nah, I'm not liking what's going on in Atlanta as a whole. I don't like Arthur Smith. I don't care that it's Taylor Heineke. Although I think, given a few more weeks, Heineke could show some. I think he's better than Ridder, to be honest with you, which is not saying.
Yeah. Great.
But I think if you're going to trade for him now, you probably might get lowballed. But if you wait a couple of weeks and he has a couple of larger producing games, then's the time to move on from him, because you still don't know what the long term future is going to be in Atlanta, especially at the quarterback position. I don't know. It's a dicey situation.
I mean, I guess it depends on if Tyler Heineke's allowed to pass to him, right? It feels like every week Arthur Smith comes out and says, I'm going to win this game without using my 3 best defensive players. Watch. And as a fantasy football player, it's so frustrating. Like, he must be, number one on everyone's sort of hit list at the moment is Arthur Smith. Please, you have 3 first-round weapons on offense. Please use them. We drafted them highly. Please use them. Stace, Carl Pitts, what are you doing with him?
Well, I mean, I think we can blame anything and everything on Arthur Smith right now. If there's something wrong in the world, like, it's going to be Arthur Smith's fault, as well it should be. And I think it's tough to know what to do with Pitts without knowing, one, is he going to end up on another team next season? Is Arthur Smith still going to be in Atlanta next season? I think if we knew the answers to those questions, it might be easier to decide, okay, are we going to hang on to him? Would he flourish in a different spot under another coach? If Arthur Smith is gone and they bring somebody in who is smart enough to use the best players on their team, maybe things look a little bit better for him. But yeah, I mean, I'm kind of with Jorge. I mean, right now, I don't think it's tough, right? You just don't know really what to do. I think if you try to unload him, you're not going to get very much because he's not worth very much right now. I think you might just end up being stuck with him unless you just really need to get rid of him for some other reason. But dynasty wise, it's tough to do it right now because you're not going to get you're not going to get any kind of return on that pick at all.
Okay, well, let's go through some options of what some Kyle Pitts owners or managers could maybe look to get in a trade for him. Kyle Pitts or Dalton Kincaid, straight up. Where are you going, Jorge?
Oh, it's Dalton Kincaid, and I'm sure you set that question up beautifully. You and your Bills Mafia and your happiness. Yeah, exactly. As you tug on your Bills hoodie right there, but it has to be Kincaid. Look who he's playing with. Look at the offense. Hey, they throw the ball. Shocker. I got a trade question here for a redraft, and this is coincidentally, I think the default setting for a lot of leagues on Sleeper, at least, this is the trade deadline for a lot of leagues, or at least it's coming up for a bunch of
this week.
Yeah, unless you've of course made changes, customizations to your leagues there. But for a lot of people, this is the trade deadline. And somebody said, I want to get Dalton Schultz for Kyle Pitts and Tyler Boyd. Am I paying too much for Dalton Schultz? And I don't know. Like I wouldn't take Pitts for Schultz 1-for-1, to be honest with you. I think I'd want something extra. And Tyler Boyd attached to the Bengals offense. I kind of feel like with tight end being the wasteland that it is, like Dalton Schultz has kind of emerged as one of the reliable passing options because CJ Stroud and the Texans, all they do is throw no matter what.
Right.
And so did you like that reference right there? That was from a song. Anywho, DJ Khaled, eat your heart out. I just think that there is more upside with Schultz. And so to pry that away from the Schultz manager now, like I'm gonna need some assets there. Do you think that's too much to ask for, Stacy or Bill?
No, I don't. I mean, I'm looking at points here right now. Schultz right now is tight end 8 with 73.5 point PPR. Kyle Pitts is all the way down at 15 with coming in right at 60.5 points. And everything that you said. I mean, Houston just is throwing the ball and they can't do anything with Kyle Pitts at this point. Jonnu Smith's outscoring them, so
I think that's the most frustrating thing for Pitts owners is you look at the production that Jonnu Smith's getting recently and you just think, why are these targets, why are these opportunities not going to the tight end that you took top 5? Why is a New England Patriot reject getting these opportunities and the unicorn out of Florida blocking? It just makes no sense. But yeah, Jorge, I think you're right. I mean, if I had Dawson Schultz and someone sent me Kyle Pitts in a straight trade, it's getting rejected flat out in redraft. I like the idea of a Tyler Boyd, and it looks like T. Higgins is going to miss this week, so that's a great spot to start him if you're looking for some help during the bye weeks. Week 10 being a nightmare bye week with the Chiefs and the Eagles, both on their byes. So yeah, I agree. It would have to be a player that I can at least get some games as a starter out of, someone that I can plug and play where necessary. And you just think, we're going to be 10 games into the season tonight, and we're taking guys like Dawson Schultz and for me personally, I'm taking Jake Ferguson over Kyle Pitts in redraft. I have no trust in Kyle Pitts. I hope, and I'm sure the fantasy, at least the dynasty community, hope that Arthur Smith is not calling the shots there next year, so we can see what Kyle Pitts, and then of course Drake London and Bijan Robinson, what those guys have as well, because it's not pretty in Atlanta at the moment, and it feels like apart from the Atlanta fans, it's the fantasy community that are suffering more than anyone else.
You know what it feels like, and this is totally like 100% shady, but it feels like the Arthur Blank, the owner of the Falcons, went to Arthur Smith and is like, all right, here's the situation. You're not going to start Bijan or emphasize Bijan. You're not going to throw it to Drake London. You're not going to throw it to Kyle Pitts. You're going to tank for a higher draft pick. I'm going to fire you, but I'm going to pay out the rest of your contract. So if you want that money, just do horribly. And then win one game, but then I want you to shave your mustache and then blame all your bad luck on the mustache and give people hope. And then after that one game, go back to losing, give me that high draft pick. So then I could not draft a high caliber defensive player a la Jalen Carter. Sorry, Keith Fleming, if you're watching. That's a sort of subject for you, as we discussed the other day. Yeah, that's crazy. So I have another question here. It's a trade question, and I had to do a double take here for a second because I don't know if I would do it. The manager here is I want to trade Gus Edwards, or excuse me, Deonta Foreman for Gus Edwards. Uh, did you know from week 7 till now, Gus Edwards in half PPR is the RB1 in points per game with 22.2 points per game? Crazy, right?
Yeah.
Deonta Foreman, 14.6 RB10. I mean, that is, you know, and it's one of those things where if I'm the Edwards manager, the Ravens are doing their thing. Lamar's throwing more, not rushing a lot. And Gus Edwards has been the primary beneficiary there, even with Justice Hill there. I don't know. I don't know if it's too late to kind of make that move, or do you think the person who has Gus Edwards could be swayed with Deonta Foreman? With Roshan has not been living up to what we were hoping he would be living up to at this point. What are your thoughts, Bill?
Yeah, I'm not making that move. If I've got Gus Edwards, I'm not giving him up for Deonta Foreman. I think first and foremost, this is a complete win for the zero RB drafters, right? When you look at Deonta Foreman doing well, you look at Gus the Bus Edwards. These are guys you're picking up late in drafts, and like you say, the recent weeks that these guys are top 10 running backs. It feels like in the fantasy world that it's the haves and the have-nots, right? The running back position. You've either got Christian McCaffrey, Austin Eckler, those type of guys, or you might as well just pump the position and see what you can pick up. Take swings late on and see what you get. But back to the original trade question, I'm keeping Gus the Bus there. I think I'm not gonna be swayed.
Nice. For those who are watching, if you have any start and sit questions or trade questions or whatever questions you want to ask, please jump in here, or else we're just going to keep talking shop until 8 o'clock right before kickoff, and then you can check us all out on the Fantasy and Frames pregame show on Sunday from 9 a.m. Eastern to noon. Yeah, no, it is crazy. I got this question, so I don't want to give out his full information just because I want to kind of respect his privacy to a certain degree. We'll just call him Demetrius, even though his name is Demetrius. But that's all I'm going to say about him. He says, rank the 3 rest of season in a standard league. Okay. Tank Dell, Drake London, Tyler Lockett in a standard league. So we don't care about the receptions. We care about just about the yardage and the touchdowns. And if you had to pick, where would you go with that, Stacy? What are your thoughts there?
I'm tempted to go Dell number 1, just because I love me some Tank Dell. I was so sad that I missed that game with his 2 touchdowns against the Bucks last week. I was able to get on Twitter and I'm like, oh, it's the best fantasy game all season, and I'm trying to frantically look at highlights. I want to go Dell 1. I think I'm trying to pull up some numbers here, so I actually have something to back that up other than just vibes. But
Vibes is how I play Dynasty.
That's pretty much how I do things too. Gosh, let me pull up London here too, because I don't feel really great about him just for all the same reasons that we just talked about with Kyle Pitts. It's not them, it's Arthur Smith. Tyler Lockett's really been disappointing this season too. So I think I'm gonna go right now. I'm gonna look up some numbers while you guys talk about it, just so I can feel a little bit better about it. But I'm gonna go Dell, Lockett, then London.
Yeah, so that's me, right? I'm going to go back off what I see on film and off what I can maybe project going forward. I think Tank Dell is going to be the best fantasy producer for the rest of the year for them 3. I like Tyler Lockett's running. I think that he's got some nice fixtures and startable games. And I'm not. If you play for the Atlanta Falcons, I'm not starting you unless I have to. I can't. You're just going to give me anxiety. Fantasy football's not worth that.
Got another question here from Demetrius. Would you trade, because he has Sam Laporta as his tight end. He also has Dalton Kincaid. So Dalton Kincaid coming off of impressive weeks here for the Buffalo Bills. Would you trade Dalton Kincaid for Devonta Smith? His wide receivers are Zay Flowers, DeAndre Hopkins, and Amon Ra.
Okay. Do you know you're gonna get the boom weeks with Devonta Smith. You're gonna get a couple of weeks where he's gonna score in the high 20s. But it looks very clear that AJ Brown is the man in that offense. Dalton Kincaid, he is a tight end, we know, but he's the de facto wide receiver too for the Bills. He catches almost everything that comes his way. I think you're gonna get a good floor with Dalton Kincaid. I think if you're talking PPR leagues, I'm taking Kincaid all day. Standard, there's a little bit of a discussion about, is it worth me taking the swing on the upside of Smith going off and scoring the big points. But I think I don't dislike his wide receiver room. Amon Ra, some Brown, obviously. Zay Flowers has looked good as a rookie. Nick Hopkins looks a lot better with Will Levis under center now. I think I'm probably sticking. And that may be my Bills bias, but I'm probably sticking with Kincaid. I don't think I'm going to make that move. How about you?
Yeah, it's one of those situations so let me go through his roster real quick. So Zay Flowers, D-Hop. Then he kind of went running back heavy with Pollard, Breece Hall, Rashad White, Chuba Hubbard, and he has Chan, on IR. So it really comes down to flex options. And so the only flex option he would have currently would be let's assume that Chan doesn't come back next week, even though it's looking like he should be on track for that. He would be then having to flex either Chuba Hubbard or Kincaid, and therefore starting Laporta and Kincaid, starting two tight ends on your roster. If we're looking for upside here, versus having Devonta Smith, right? I don't know. I don't like. I kind of would. I don't know. Maybe I would chase the points then with Smith in this situation, given the construction.
Yeah, I see what you're saying when it comes to how he's built that team out. I guess it's horses for courses. Do you want to go into the week thinking if Smith has a big week, I'm more than likely gonna blow out my opponent, or do you go, I'm gonna settle on those floor points that I know I'm gonna get with Kincaid and those receptions? It's probably more how you build your roster and how confident you are in starting those high floor players against those high ceiling players, right? How about you, Stacy? You're the deciding vote, it looks like.
Yeah. Okay. So, funny enough, I actually do have a team where I've got Kincaid and Laporta and Travis Kelce. So that's been fun, and I started all three of them a couple weeks ago. That was super fun. Anyway, question that is at hand here, right? One thing that we haven't talked about is Dallas Goedert, right? So he's got that fracture in his arm. Is that right? Yeah. So
he'll be out for a little while.
Did they put him on the IR, or is it okay? That's what I thought. Thank you. So, next 4 games at least, who knows if he comes back before the end of the season. Maybe they save him for the playoffs. But if I remember right, last season is when Goddard was hurt, when Smith just saw so much more production fantasy-wise. So, maybe that happens again. I'm looking at right now their targets. They're basically the same in targets, with Devonta Smith only having like 7 more targets than Dallas Goedert right now. So if you take Goedert out of the equation, you could definitely see higher production out of Smith for sure. So if he's got Laporta already, it doesn't sound like you're starting 2 tight ends there. So, I think you might want to take Smith in that situation. Yeah, I don't see anything wrong with taking Smith in that situation. If Goddard was still playing, if there hadn't been that injury, I might be a little bit more hesitant to do it. But, things are what they are. And so since Goddard's going to be out for at least the next 4 weeks, probably more, I think I would go ahead and make that trade.
There's your answer.
Yeah. That's right. Smith. We got John McClin in the chat. John, what's up, buddy? I got Rashad White versus Tennessee or Bijan versus Arizona, full PPR. I'm going Rashad White. I can't trust. Wow, I can't trust Bijan Robinson. Something I didn't think anyone would ever say back in August and July. It just sucks. Like the usage has just not been there, and the PPR upside, it's for me, it's Rashad White.
Yeah, I agree completely.
Mhm.
You just can't trust. You just can't trust Bijan Robinson. You can't trust the Atlanta offense. And Rashad White, I'm comfortable with. He had a big week last week, and hopefully that's sort of the kick on that he can take now to sort of break into that sort of low end RB1 for the remainder of the season. So yeah, give me Rashad White there. I've got a feeling it's going to be a full house. What do you reckon, Stace?
Yeah, I mean, I think so too. I mean, I don't really necessarily love the run game for Tampa, but it's the same reasons that like we've just talked about before, not being able to trust Arthur Smith. It's not Bijan, it's Arthur Smith. So I got to go White here.
And to throw it on top of that, the whole PPR aspect.
Mhm.
You look at the targets since week 7 for Rashad White, 6, 7, 4. He's caught everything in 7 and 8, 65 yards receiving, 70 yards receiving. And last week was his full week with a full complement of rushing attempts with 20 that you really saw him start to take off. So I don't know. And I'm sure, again, Gator J, if you're listening or watching, you'll appreciate this because I don't normally give the Tampa Bay Buccaneers any credit at all. But it's almost like they're starting to get some of their pieces to turn the corner there. And with nobody really establishing dominance in the NFC South, oh, maybe here come the Bucs with Baker Mayfield. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to watch how things go down the stretch.
They're definitely feisty, those Bucks.
What are we doing with Jamar Gibbs, guys? So Montgomery's coming back. Gibbs has had a couple of great weeks. Are we trying to sell high on the back of 2 good weeks for Jamar Gibbs in redraft and find someone that's not going to be sharing that backfield? What are we doing?
I think now's the time to do it, right? If you're going to try to trade him, take top value at this point when he's had really great weeks. Yeah, so I mean, if you're looking to get rid of him, do it now while his value's at the highest.
Or are you looking to move Gibbs in redraft now that Montgomery's back?
You don't really think they're gonna like give it all back to Montgomery, do you? Like do you? Like at this point, like
I think they're gonna give a lot of it back to him.
That's what it comes down to, right? Whether you think that that's going to happen, and more importantly, the person you're trading with, if you have Jahmyr Gibbs, if that's what they think. But you could run into the manager where it's like, let's assume that you're the person who has Gibbs, and it's like, you know what, that's it. I'm just going to make the attempt, and I'm going to assume that the person who I'm trying to get, let's say I'm a Mahomes and wide receiver 2 for Jahmyr Gibbs, just hypothetical trade scenario, is just been so enamored with Gibbs coming off of that dominant performance on Monday Night Football a couple weeks ago. I would want to get somebody like that, like a Mahomes and a wide receiver 2 for that value. And maybe I can even get more depending on how desperate that person's roster is. But yeah, I guess that now's the time again with the trade, the trade deadline coming up here. Yeah, it's tough. I personally, I think I would hold. But I can understand people wanting to trade and get top value because you will get top value in return, especially for some players that are on bye this week that are unavailable, like a Travis Kelce, like an AJ Brown. Just think about that from that perspective. A Tyreek Hill, you could all get for I think Jahmyr Gibbs, straight up or with another piece thrown in there.
Yeah, I think that's what it is, right? You kind of don't want, especially redraft, you don't want to get caught holding the bag. You've had a great couple of weeks from Jamar Gibbs. If you can cash that in for a player or players, as you said, Jorge, that you have got a clearer path, or you're not worried so much about that possible rotation, that possible sharing of a backfield, or is Gibbs, does he now become one fumble away from giving that whole backfield back to David Montgomery, where you can maybe get yourself a couple of pieces that are a little bit more secure for that running now? You should know whether you're in a position and you look like you're going to be a contender in these leagues. I think this is the kind of move that if you make it correctly, if you find the right buyer, you could really set yourself up for a good playoff run.
Yeah. Got a question here from Jason. What is the value of Chris Godwin in Dynasty? So he's 27 years old. He has had 1,000-yard back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. He's never gotten you double-digit touchdowns. The target volume has been there, though. It depends. Is Baker Mayfield the long-term quarterback there in Tampa Bay? If it's not, I think it takes a hit. If it is, I think his value takes a hit. But with the offseason talk about Mike Evans potentially not being there going into next year and them not giving him a contract extension, that could raise his value. Obviously, the targets have to go somewhere. Targets vacated, all that. So I guess in terms of draft pick value, I think he's a high 2. I don't think he's a 1. And I could even try and do a mid-second round pick for that. What about you, Bill and Stacy? What are your thoughts on?
I just don't know if I see what you're saying. Right, I'd be a little bit apprehensive to spend a first on him, and that first ends up as a top 5 pick, let's say, or a top 6 pick, and you kind of go, look at the talent coming out and what I could have had, and now I've got an aging receiver with an unstable quarterback situation. I just don't know if you're going to find any sellers at that price, a second round pick. It might have to be a second plus, maybe a Jalen Hyatt or a rookie that hasn't quite done anything yet. Because I'm guessing if you're selling Chris Godwin, you're not a contender, and you're possibly looking to pick up draft picks and pick up some young players and see if you can, open that winning window down the line a few years. I think you'd have to cough up a little bit more than a second. If I'm a contender and Godwin's going to start for me, and I've got my own first round pick, I'd probably be quite comfortable sending it, knowing in my head that it's going to be pick 108 to 112, let's say. I'd probably go all in, push the chips to the table and take a shot on Chris Godwin, knowing that, especially PPR leagues, you're going to get a double-digit points floor more often than not from him. So again, what's the value of him? Depends who you're selling to, and depends on where you are as a selling team, I guess. But I think between a high first or a mid first and a young player, or a second, as Jorge said, or a late first to the right contender. How about you, Stace?
Yeah, so I was taking a look at his numbers too. So his last 4 seasons, actually, he's had over 1,000 yards, going back to 2019 on up. And does anybody know his current contract situation? I'm trying to find. I have a website that I look at for that, but I can't find it right now.
Someone text Tyler.
Yeah, where's Tyler? Tyler, where are you? But yeah, I would kind of want to know what is his contract situation. Actually, I did just find that website. So give me 2 seconds. I can find it. Is he still going to be there? Could he potentially go with another team? Is Baker going to be there? Right now, he's on a 3-year, $60 million contract. Let's see. 2024 is the last year of that contract. Okay. So that's good to know. But yeah, I think I have a lot of questions, before that need to be answered before I could accurately tell you okay, here's what his value is. Like you said, Jorge, is Baker still going to be there? What's going to happen with Mike Evans? Is he still going to be on the team or not? I know, and he is a little bit older, but his production level the last 4 years has been really, fantastic. And I think, he's somebody, I see him and Evans as like an A and a B, or not really an A and a B. It's like a 1A, 1B kind of thing where they're not, I guess he is technically the number 2 in Tampa, but anywhere else, he could go somewhere and still be that wide receiver 1 for a team. So given his production value and his talent, I think he still probably has a couple more years of being pretty high value for dynasty purposes.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, I think we can call it. Kickoff's about to happen. We appreciate the people who sent in the questions via DM or on Twitter. Bill, it's great seeing you again. Stacy, it's awesome seeing you again. Glad you had a great time on vacation. And Bill, we gotta see you more often, man. Gotta get you up early on the pregame show. I know, that's going to be a hard one to do. I know it's.
We'll get one before the end of the season, I promise.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you all for tuning in, and we shall see you on Sunday for the pregame show, and then right back here next Thursday for the Mailbag show. So, Bill, Stacy, I'm Jorge. We'll see you next week.